Phobias, whether rational or not, cause an overwhelming and debilitating fear in the very core of a person. This fear develops when a person has an exaggerated or unrealistic fear about a situation or object. Arachnophobia is the intense and irrational fear of spiders and other arachnids. Many would consider this to be absurd, yet there is a creature lurking in the bayou whose very presence strikes fear into the hearts of the bravest hunters. All those who survive this monster are forever changed, haunted by the visions of death at the hands of the spider. More people than you think suffer with arachnophobia, a primal fear of something poisonous lurking, weaving traps, able to scale any surface. Among all the conflicting reports to come out of the bayou during the Louisiana incident, there is one reference which has weaved its way into being a constant reminder of that fear, a fear of something not quite human, of something not quite spider, a semi-sentient form of human limbs, its body overflowing with poison, its mind filled with malicious intent. We have very little in the way of information regarding the creature known as the spider, yet there is one man who managed to document much of what we now consider fact about this abominable creature. During his interview with T. Collins, John Victor revealed everything he knew about the spider. Some of this was mere speculation, yet a lot of it was from his own confrontation with the spider. During a hunt, John Victor came across the withered remains of Dr. Reed's party. However, of Dr. Reed there was no sign. It's possible he fled out of fear before his men perished, although many believe his disappearance to have a more sinister purpose. The corpses John Victor found had been disemboweled, their organs consumed, the bodies withered, laying where they fell. Of all the horrific things John Victor had seen in the bayou, the sight of a small child amongst the dead here was more harrowing than anything else he had seen. The reason this small child haunted Victor so badly is because of what he saw when he first encountered the spider. Victor told T. Collins that he dug a pit to bury what remained of Dr. Reed's party, yet he says, "The first time we fought the spider, I remembered that night, that pit, that child's face swimming up at me out of the sodden earth and memory. We never again found the grave I'd dug. Too many long nights, too many crumbling barns, too many pits excavated in earth turned 100 times, ploughed by processions of hunters burying the dead and killing them again. But it was the girl's eye, leering out of a fold in the spider's flesh, screeching, pleading, spitting. The poisonous bile burnt my own eyes like hell. I was blinded. I stumbled out of its nest, clawing at my eyes to clear it. Are we to believe, then, that the bodies John Victor buried form part of the spider? That somehow Dr. Reed was the cause of this monstrosity? The very idea that Dr. Reed was responsible for his party's death was deplorable to John Victor. Yet, given Reed's portent for the macabre, it was hardly surprising. But was he responsible for the creation of the spider? It certainly seems plausible, given John Victor's account. Yet it was beyond Reed's ability to reanimate and create a creature such as the spider. It was, in fact, something more sinister that forged the spider. The Sculptor is the force which gave life to this creature, but it is perhaps the actions of Dr. Reed that made it possible in the first place. There is one other rumour to have made its way out of the bayou, with evidence backed up from the documents, the trials of Dr. Reed. A rumour which leaves many with a feeling of hopelessness in their stomach. The idea that Dr. Reed succumbed to the Sculptor's taint and was twisted into becoming the beast known as the spider. In his diary, we see Dr. Reed slowly succumb to madness, or perhaps infection. His writings begin to seem erratic. He even forgets his own name, until approached and addressed by the name of Dr. Reed. He starts having blackouts, which become more and more frequent. Each time he awakes from these blackouts, members of his party have gone missing. It is when Dr. Reed writes, "I came to among bodies and blood, still warm, still running. The scent was divine. I feel a new sense of purpose. Flesh parts, butter beneath the warm knife. I do not wait, I do not pray. The flesh dwindles, body and blood, given for you. I must leave them to the maggots now, my brethren. Bread of life, body red, red water, I will find strength within myself. This leads us to believe he consumed the remains of his companions, and disturbingly enjoyed it. His fall from humanity seems almost complete when he describes feeling nothing as he saws off his own leg. The writings in his diary no longer resemble coherent thought, eventually becoming nothing more than gibberish. John Victor's theory was dismissed by Philip Huff Jones, the director of the American Hunters Association, saying that the creature is not actually a spider, but chose to portray itself as an animal belonging to the arachnida class, a class of joint-legged invertebrate animals. The reason it favours this form is surely to take advantage of one of humanity's most primal fears, arachnophobia. It appears that John Victor was not the only hunter to have faced off against the spider and killed it. There are many other hunters who claim to have killed and banished the spider, each with undeniable proof. But how does the spider keep reappearing in the bayou? In John Victor's accounts, he tells how he met a hunter from Alabama who was wounded and bleeding out. John Victor put him out of his misery, perhaps an act of mercy, or perhaps an act of greed, as this hunter held in his hand an appendage, a prize to gain reward for a successful hunt. What John Victor didn't know at the time, but later discovered, is that this appendage was from the spider. He describes the appendage as a forearm, but with too many joints, one ending in a large knuckle and branched off into two deformed toes or fingers. It becomes clear to John Victor that the appendage belongs to the spider as soon as he encounters it. He describes entering the docks. The sound of something moving around, scuttling, could be heard, but he could not see what was making the noises. He found that the interior was full of giant webbing. Upon entering the building, John Victor says, "Black viscous liquid, a droplet the size of my fist, splattered onto my sleeve. Instinctively, I followed the tendril of vicious bile upward toward the ceiling, where her eye peered back. Hanging off a beam, ready to pounce, lurked the twisted and malformed mass of my quarry." After killing the spider, John Victor discovers that the spider is made up of many human forms that have been shaped together to make one vile entity. There is only one head, which is located in the mandibles. This central human has become known as the alpha entity. The rest of its form consists of heart, lungs and stomachs, all engorged by a large bulbous mass on its back. All of this twisted beyond the abilities of its origins, giving the spider superhuman endurance and agility. The reason we can ascertain that the spider is in fact an amalgamation of human bodies is the fact that its limbs are still recognizable as human body parts. One human is not enough to create the giant form of the spider. It is in fact formed out of a number of people who all shared a great and insurmountable suffering, something that the bayou was full of. The spider John Victor encountered was created from the remains of Dr. Reed's party, and likely Dr. Reed himself. Each time the spider appears, it seems that it possesses a new host and creates a new form, acquiring new body parts, with the intent of growing stronger each time. If this is correct, is it possible that the face of the spider we come across in the game is in fact Dr. Reed? I believe it could be. But what is the purpose of the spider, and why was it designed to be so deadly, so much more so than the other monsters in the bayou? John Victor talks about Harold Black and his investigation into the purpose of the spider. Black believed that the spider was just a builder. After all, there were cocoons in the church, incubating more and more of the plague. Scognomiglio had a different theory altogether. During his meeting with John Victor, he said, "Part of the devil, the lord of the flies, the sculptor, whatever you want to call it, went bad." Not often, but they did. When it weakened, they went feral. Or something like to that. Hard to imagine, isn't it? The spider was there to make sure that didn't happen. This theory makes sense given the symbolism of other creatures in the bayou, the insects and moths, which are frequently associated with the sculptor's other creations. These creatures, typically being prey for spiders. However, John Victor dismisses this theory, as he had never seen this behaviour from the spider. Instead, he preferred to believe Howard Black's theory that the spider was a builder. This was due to John Victor wanting to believe the hunters were stopping the spread of something worse at the hands of the spider, rather than hunting a creature which actually helped contain the plague. After all, if the spider was indeed killing the bad parts, the hunters would have left it alone, as it meant less for them to kill. Whatever the spider's identity, and whatever its true purpose is, one thing is certain: the spider is one of the most deadly creatures the hunters of the AHA faced off against during the Louisiana incident.